Hello, everyone. Good afternoon from Nigeria.
Wait, please wait little. We are not still in live.
Okay,
Please wait.
okay. All right, all right.
Yes, now we're live. Please,
Professor
let's start.
Joel, you can start. You can start.
Okay. Good afternoon from Nigeria. Probably at your own end, it might be evening. Good evening. If it is morning, over to you. Good morning. Good morning. I am Joel Olaniyan. I am an education ambassador. I am sharing this afternoon on the platform of IIU. IIU being an international platform that is available in over 195 countries. And they have done so well to come up with trainings and courses. It's an international internship university that has trained so many people over the years. And this afternoon again, IIU is giving us another platform to learn. And today we want to talk about the 21st century learning and a specific approach to modern approaches to teaching and learning. I hope my slide is up now. So as you can see, for the outline this afternoon, we're looking at the 21st century as an introduction. We are also looking at the expectation of the 21st century. And we also consider what should our students be able to do and know. What kind of teacher should teach them? And how should we teach them? How do we become a 21st century learners? And then we will look at the conclusion. All right. If you look around you, things are changing. In other words, things are different now. Gone are the days where we used to use some simple implements or even manual labor. Today, things have gone differently. And it as a result of the topic we are about treating now. We must adapt to change. Let's, if you can hear me from your end, just think about how has our world changed? What has happened to us? Next slide. All right. I know you may not be able to interact with me, but here is just a chart. So looking at this chart, it is a brainstorming tool to reflect upon the changes that have taken place during your lifetime. So in terms of communication, when you were in school, how was it? And today, how is it? Is it the same communication pattern? When you look at your career, when you were in school, how was the career you are into now? How is it? What was the difference between when you were in school and then what you are doing today? Looking at methods of purchase, how was it like? And education, how was it like during your school years and today? We are going to see the images to be able to acclimatize ourselves with what we are talking about on the next slide. You can see that in the entertainment industry has changed. You can see the picture by your left. It's totally different from the one from the right. That is showing that I am trying to establish the fact that things have changed. Next. Communication-wise, things have also changed. You could remember the days of landline, even though we still have landlines, but they are not commonly used. We have a cell phone now. We call it mobile phone. Next. Jobs have changed as well. Gone are the days where you have to sit over the machine to type from morning to evening. These days, you have probably a 3-in-1 printer that can photocopy, that can print, and that can laminate, and even scan your document, and you can send it anywhere in the world. Our method of payments have also changed. Gone are the days where items are being traded by barter. These days, we are having payment in cash. We can use your credit card. You can make payments online. And these are the changes we are talking about. There is another slide that talks about education just after this. Education is also changing. Gone are the days where we use the typewriter to type for long hours. Today, with the laptop and with access to internet, you can get a lot of things done within a short time. This is to establish the fact that things have changed. Next. And this is an appeal that all educators who want to help the student to succeed in life, they should know that things that happened in education 50 years ago are no longer in use today. They are obsolete. So we need to brace change. We need to embrace 21st century learning. And that is what we're going to look at. So the future of learning, what will learning look like in the future? To be able to digest this particular context, I have put up some set of questions that you might want to reflect on, and then we'll all arrive at the answer. Next, please. Now, what if the world in 20 years from now, when the children will visit your institution, they have left and are out of this world? That is, what will the world be like 20 or so years from now, when the children who visit your institution, I have left school and are out in the world? So have you thought about that? You as an institution, what skills will these children need to be successful in the world you have imagined 20 years from now? And what were the conditions that made your high performance learning experience so powerful? What would learning be like if it were designed around your answers to the first 3 questions? So if people were to go by your answers to the first 3 questions, in what world would they be in 20 years to come? So that brings us that for us to grow, we have to educate people to do jobs that don't yet exist, which means we have to invent them. So we train them, we teach them how to invent, how to be creative, and train people to do them at the same time. So that brings in entrepreneurship in our institution. As a school, have you thought about entrepreneurship? As a teacher or professor, have you thought about learning by doing? That is harder, and it is why we need everyone to aspire to be creative creator or creative server. Next. So what do these changes mean for education? It simply means lifelong learning. So imagine if people in the past have not thought critically. What if they have not invented things? So we will not have this developed world. We won't be as exposed as we are. So learning is a lifelong process where adapting to change is very crucial. So learning how to learn is also essential to success. Now we can see that from the progress we have made so far, from the things before and the things now, we've seen that there has been a tremendous rate of learning and growth in our society. And this behooves us to also follow and toe the line. This is a statement, it's a myth. Some people still think that learners are the same as they have always been. Let me ask you, do you think that is true? The same methods that have worked for me when I was a student will work for my student now. These are the concepts of many teachers today. These are concepts of some setting, educational setting. But looking at it, is it really true? Today's learners are different. You will agree with me. They think and process information fundamentally differently from their predecessors. That is a true fact, and we have established it with all the facts we have shown you earlier on. So learning to learn, how will you get there? How do we get there? If you don't know where you are going, it's a simple sentence, but it's a thought-provoking statement. How will you get to where you are going if you don't know the way? So let's talk about the language of learning, definition of learning, levels of understanding. I may not touch on all of this, but I have picked some of these points so that we can trash them today. We are looking at critical thinking, research on the brain, learning styles, and some other topics like affective domain, if time permits. Okay, let's look at the level of understanding, taking the Bloom taxonomy. Way back, hundreds of years ago, Bloom was a professor at the university, so he developed the taxonomy of learning. That is the order of thinking. And you have that when the children are in the class and learning is taking place, the concept of knowledge acquisition is the first step, and then comprehension follows, and then the skill to apply before they could analyze and synthesize and then evaluate at the end of the day. That was the formal process. Nothing was wrong with that process, but because of the development and the advancement in technology and the way of thinking, it has slightly changed. And let's look at the next slide to see what we have today. The revised taxonomy by Anderson says that instead of looking at knowledge, because today we have children in the classroom, they are learning to cram, they are learning to just have it upstairs and then go to exam, do the assessment, and then you ask them again about the concept, they can't remember. In other words, they just learned to pass the exam. If these students eventually grow and become citizens, they will not be able to defend their learning. They will not be able to contribute positively to the society. Why? Because they have forgotten what they have learned. But the revised taxonomy is talking about remembering instead of knowledge. So what should be at the back of your mind as an institution or as a teacher is to teach the children such that they can remember, not that they can cram. And if they remember, they should understand. You should always check for understanding at each stage of your teaching and learning process. And of course, if they understand, when you give out the worksheet, you give out the task, assignment, they will definitely apply. And in the process of applying, there are other levels that these children, as a result of interaction in the classes, using different pedagogies, they will be able to analyze, they will be able to evaluate themselves, and then they will be able to come up with creating. In the former pyramid, you saw that there was evaluation and the pyramid was closed. But at this time around, the pyramid is open. That is, after creating, there is still more to do. They can go ahead to do their own project, to present, to even sell their product, depending on what they have done. So it all boils down to the relationship that we establish with our students in the classroom. And then I have put up this so that we can understand better the concept of the revised Bloom taxonomy. So the children receive information and knowledge. And because they understand the information, they respond to the learning. And for them to be able to apply, they are using value. They are giving value, things that they have understood. And then they will be able to organize their work into contexts, and concepts. The characteristics by value, they'll be able to put them side by side. They can group it, they can work in pairs, they can work in groups, they can do projects. And of course, with the teacher supporting them by the side through the affective domain, they can create and create and create. When I heard of a school owner who went to Dubai, and then she was saying that when she got to a particular class, year 8, she saw a student who has made a pullover, that is a cardigan, by himself. And he designed it, and they produced it, and the school sold it. And of course, the student had some dividends. So these are the things 21st century learning will make our children to be. And we, as tutors, as teachers, as institution, of course, we will also grow and will become more renowned. Well, here is a tale of two classrooms. In the classroom A is a sort of the traditional classroom that we have talked about. And classroom B is the modern classroom. So in the column A, the teacher knows everything. But today, the teacher is also a learner. When I started teaching freshly, I remember that it was my student, in fact, a year 4-old, that taught me what a propeller is. I didn't know what a propeller. I showed them the helicopter, and I was trying to describe the part, and she said, "That's a propeller." I said, "Wow, I learned something," you see. So when we present the learning in such a way that the children can participate, we also gain some knowledge. Teach us questions and mistake. Let's move on. We want to look at the teaching proper now. Let's look at class activity, for example. In teaching, you must incorporate what the children know into the learning. The class activity should be more outdoor and hands-on. We are not saying that indoor learning is not good, but sometimes the children must feel the environment. The children must have a touch of things. Why must students enjoy learning? It is their right. Learning should be fun so that they can fulfill their highest goal. Another point is that Learning should be relevant. Learning should be irresistible. Of course, analytical, that is the involving critical thinking. Problem solving. Let's look at 21st century strategies for teachers. The preparation level. In preparing our lessons, we should have it in mind that we are preparing children for the emerging challenges of our time. What are the emerging challenges of our time? We have insecurities, we have global warming, we have political instabilities, we have the SDGs. So many things that we need to incorporate in our teaching and learning, make learning relevant to our time. Bear in mind that education is not about content, but adaptability. We should be able to help the children to adapt the learning to suit their condition. Children should be able to enjoy and apply what they have learned. That's very important. We should be facilitators of learning, in short. Teachers' preparation still. A 21st century teacher must be better prepared in terms of subject knowledge. You must know something about everything, of course. And the children can ask questions from different angles. That is why we must come to class prepared. And you need to be widely read. May I ask you, when last did you read a book? Or what book are you reading currently? Of course, a 21st century teacher must present the curriculum, that is the scheme that he has prepared, using what the children like and by making it relevant. We have to be creative. This word cannot be overemphasized. Creativity in teaching and learning is very key. So when teaching light, for example, you can introduce it first by allowing them to use the camera or flash so that they can understand how light is generated. You must have a good classroom management skill. Do you know that classroom management is the most important skill that you must have to be able to allow your children to learn effectively? And comportment and grooming is key. You have to be approachable, allow the children to warm up to you, to ask questions, be just a role model for them. As teachers, we are facilitators of learning, especially teachers who have just come to the profession. We need to be allow the children. You know, we seldom want to force everything into the minds of these children. Don't worry, the children are inquisitive and they will learn as you go. The truth is, if we need to hand over the chalk instead of facilitating. So allow your children to do more of the talking, a ratio of something like 70-30, 70% for the children to interact with you. And then the 30% is for you to be able to facilitate and check for learning. As technology has made information more readily available, so we should be able to facilitate since they have the content already. Still on being a facilitator of learning, we should be able to be intrinsic motivation rather, which is the inner satisfaction one gets from that gives us pleasure. The children too have this intrinsic motivation, you know, because of the way you carry out the activities in the classroom, they are self-motivated. they want to reflect, and they want to critically evaluate what they are learning. Yes, the last slide under facilitator of learning, personal development is key. You know, I talked about lifelong learning the other time. So we should be able to encourage our children to learn on their own. They should learn as even fast as possible. If possible, if they have the learning content, they go home and research. And when they make their research, they come to class and contribute. And they'll be able to ask meaningful questions. And this adds to the beautiful atmosphere of the learning. Let's look at preparation of students now. Do remember that whether it's preparation for teachers or preparation for learning or preparation for students, it is the teacher that does all that. You don't go to the farm with bare hands. You must go with your tools. And that is why you must prepare yourself and then prepare the learning and also prepare the students. In engaged learning setting, students are responsible for their own learning. So they take charge. And of course, they define the learning goals and problems that are meaningful to them, of course. They have a big picture of how specific learning activities relate to those goals. Of course, you will guide them as a teacher. They have alternative routes or strategies for attaining their goals. You know, when we talk about creativity, it's not something we just have to do for the children. You can best see the creativity of your children when you allow them do it. There are different ways. When you look at number 6, when I look at it from my end, it looks at the 6 with the joint going up, but the other person has the tail of the number going down. So he is seeing 9, I am seeing 6. So you allow the children to see the learning from their own angle. That is how creativity comes out, a kind of thinking out of the box. So engaged learners are able to shape and manage change. Let's look at 10 ways to take responsibility for the learning of students. Just allow them to make some decisions. Do not let them guess, talk less, model behavior and activity that promote learning. Ask for feedback, encourage group and peer activities. Encourage goal setting and reflection, plan with relevance, focus on learning, not marks. Organize student-led conferences. When you do this, you will be able to harness the learning a lot. Of course, when teaching, you must bear in mind that students are not the same. No two children are the same. This leads us to the concept of differentiation, which is learning in a different way. Children are unique. They come to your class with their unique differences. So you should be able to present the learning to be able to suit their different learning. We cannot talk about learning styles, but we know that children have learning styles. Some are visual, some are auditory, some are kinesthetic, and all that. So let's look at our Gardner's theories of intelligence. Our Gardner, of course, was a professor, and he came up with these theories of intelligences. They were actually 8, but they've been grouped into 3, which I have just mentioned. We have the visual learners, the auditory learners, the kinesthetic learners. So in effect, while curricular goals might be standard for all students, the methodologies employed in the classroom should necessarily be varied to meet their individual needs. I have said earlier, no children are the same, and no one size fits all. So we have children in these various categories. Some are up and coming. Some of you can call them slow learners, but I suggest that we call children such names because it has the psychology, the way it plays in their mind. So you can refer to them as up and coming. Those who are average, of course, they are average students, and the high flyers. We have the special educational needs students for whom you have to develop an individual educational plan. And we have gifted and talented students. These ones are those you always keep engaged in your classroom so that they don't disrupt the learning. Let's briefly look at the lesson objective. The lesson objective must be told to the children. You cannot embark on a journey without knowing your destination. Otherwise, you'll be lost. No matter how brilliant a teacher you are, you must always tell the route to the student. This is what we are studying. This is what we are learning. Okay, that's what we call lesson objective. And this will help you to plan for your assessment for learning and your assessment of learning. So a sample is the what we are learning to, and the with what I am looking for, that's the teacher. And of course, you must list the keywords. So why use learning objectives? We use learning objective to guide the learners, to help them focus on what needs to be learned and to set priorities. You will see that when you introduce the learning objectives, some students will want to jot so that they can see whether they have measured up to the objectives or not. It creates the learner's basis for self-assessment. They'll be able to assess themselves. They'll be able to set the stage for what the master skill looks like. Effective learning objectives are learner focus, not instructor and content focus. You have to always bear the children in mind. Focus on the intended learning that results from an activity, a course, or a program. So it is a general capture of concepts, but with enough details to be clear, specific, and measurable. Goal versus learning objectives. Of course, there is what we call goals. Those are statements that are described in broad terms. Next. Again, like I said, objective are statements that describe specifically what the learner is expected. We as teachers may mix up goals with objectives. Objectives are directed to the learners and the types of behavior they should exhibit. You have an example. Learners will list 3 characteristics that make the family medicine physician distinctive from other specialists. So you can see that this objective is behavioral. Still on learning objective, they should include a measurable verb, 1 task or behavior per verb. Choose the verb that best describes the type of behavior or task, and the condition as well, how the task or behavior will be performed, the standard for acceptable performance, how well the task of behavior must be performed to meet the standards. And then, of course, at the end of teaching and learning, you evaluate the learning objectives. You use the criteria that were shared previously to assess the learning. The children can also assess themselves in peers, in groups, and give feedback. Feedback is also very important. We have objective. I think I've talked about that. Of course, your students are your audience, so you must understand them. You should be able to relate to them, how they best learn, how they need to know to do the job, what they already know to do. You know that schooling and teaching, it is a form of training of the mind and the training of the psychology to be able to behave in an acceptable manner and to be able to create and produce what will be beneficial or what will be of benefit to the society. I have put up writing learning objectives, and for just your information, we have types of domains: the cognitive, that is the knowing; the psychomotor, which is the doing; the affective, which is the feeling. And there is a fourth one, but it's not here. That's the metacognitive. So writing learning objective, as I've said previously, this is just a table to show you how you'll be able to construct your learning objectives. All right, let's look at the activity side of the lesson presentation. You know, we have talked about what should be in a proper lesson planning or a note. Now, look at the breakdown. You know, you must always start your lesson with a starter. It is a transition between one lesson or the other. Or the children are coming to class in the morning. How do you intend to engage them into the learning? That's what we call a starter. That's what I refer to a starter. Of course, you must connect them to the learning using previous knowledge. Okay, if there's no previous knowledge, you can enhance your starter in such a way that it can link you to the topic of the day. And most of the time, as a result of the starter activity, the children will end up mentioning the topic for the day. And that is a very great way to get them engaged. Of course, you need to activate the learning. If you have a cell phone and there is no SIM card in it, you cannot make a phone call. So activating the learning is using different methods, you know, videos, role play, singing, outdoor games, internet activities, to be able to engage the children. And of course, demonstrate. The children will have to demonstrate the learning to you. Further teaching, probably using group work, discussion class, application. And then when you are done with the demonstration, you consolidate. You must bring back the salient point and reinforce it before the class of the day ends. Now, looking at practical lesson, you know, when you are making your lesson practical, definitely you must do some things that will be attractive and make the learners to be active and engaged. You can create different corners in the classroom. You can have active learning parameters. Of course, a Chinese proverb is saying, if I hear, I may forget. If I see, I may remember. If I do, I will never forget. So what does this tell us? It tells us that learning by doing is very important. Many of us that are listening to me today, if I should ask you to tell me all the topic your teachers have taught you while you were in school, will you be able to mention it? No, but you'll be able to remember some of the practicals you did. That is what we are talking about. And of course, you must infuse technology into the teaching and learning. Use of IP boards, TVs, videos, computers, and the rest. I have talked earlier on Bloom taxonomy. That's the theory of questioning, the order of thinking. Next slide. So the questioning method helps to develop high order thinking in our students. So using the Bloom taxonomy, teachers can easily move students to recall more than simple knowledge and simple fact. So by asking higher order thinking questions, which will require students to think what they can learn and find, during the lesson. Next. I have shared the Bloom taxonomy before, so let's keep that. This is just to refresh our mind. Next slide. Now, 21st century learning cannot take place without collaboration. So collaborative learning is key. So students have to work in groups and they tend to understand the subject matter more thoroughly. Small groups that they have can transform the class into supportive learning teams, and it helps them think together. By the way, we are preparing them for a world that we may not be part of. So why not allow them to think for themselves, to work for themselves, and keep them energized and motivated? So advantages of group work: children are able to express their opinion without fear. There is an exchange of ideas and opinion, ability to reflect, opportunity to talk, learn to listen to others, more learning taking place than learning individually. So you can bet it with me that children learn more easily and faster when they talk to themselves. And at the end of the day, when this happens, there are skills that are developed. We refer them to as 21st century learning skills, and they are communication skills, creativity skills, collaborative skills, and critical thinking. Assessment and evaluation. We have formative, which is ongoing. I mentioned it earlier. You focus on both the process and the product of learning. That is the ongoing assessment that goes on in the classroom. It provides information upon which instructional decision and adaptation can be made. And the second one is the summative assessment, which occurs at the end of the term when pupils are tested on achievement of the curriculum objectives. It helps determine skills, knowledge, and ability. Monitoring and observation. And that is going to be my last slide for the day. Monitoring and evaluation is very important. And this is a call to supervisors, head teachers, principals, because learning has to be monitored and observed so that we can give proper feedback. The teacher, first of all, must also monitor the learning process. While children are working in pairs and in groups, we must be able to observe and give feedback. And the children will also give feedback. But on another angle, the supervisor, the head teacher, the principal will also monitor and observe the learning process and use some feedback strategies to be able to get feedback from children, at the end of the day, so that children are well prepared for the assessment whenever they come. The question I want to even ask you, if you teach the student very well, do you really need to assess them? If students at the end of your lesson can be creative and come up with something beautiful, something that has never existed, would there be need for assessment at all? So that is how crucial the teaching and learning is all about. So you define the expectation for teachers. That's from the school-wide responsibility. Ensure observer accuracy, ensure reliability of results, and determine alignment with outcomes. That is all what form the 21st century learning. I am going to stop here for today. Thank you for taking time to be part of this learning journey with me. I am Joel Olaniyan, an education ambassador, and I want to thank IIU for giving me the opportunity to share my knowledge on the topic of today. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.